Welcome to This Mother Means Business. We have a podcast. I don't even really know where to start. I didn't come into recording this episode with a big plan, but what I wanted to do was give you a little bit of insight into what's to come with this podcast. I never thought I would have a podcast, but what I have learned over the last 2 years is that there is simply not enough conversation being had about what it's like to be an ambitious entrepreneurial mother. So here I am doing the things, and we're going to have these conversations. This Mother Means Business is going to come to you each week with solo episodes and guest interviews with other incredible, ambitious mothers creating lives that are completely different than the ones that they had growing up. And to say that I'm excited about this project is truly an understatement. I am incredibly nervous. I am incredibly excited, but I know from 8 years of entrepreneurship, 5 years of being a mother, that it is an incredibly important conversation to have that frankly, not enough people are having. And I have had the pleasure of putting myself in rooms, connecting with other incredible entrepreneurial mothers. And when we start talking about the things that are hard, the moments that are not social media worthy, the moments that feel like, oh my gosh, can I even do this? The moments you want to quit. When we have those conversations, it feels like such magic and connection. And the response that I have from other women when I lead in those conversations is, oh, I wish I'd had this conversation sooner, or we need to talk about this more. And so here we are talking about it more. This podcast is really here to create a safe space for you. We're going to be telling the truth. We'll be sharing the hard stuff and the celebrations too. And what I want you to walk away from each week is knowing that you are not alone, as well as tangible tools and tricks that are really going to help you get from where you are to where you want to go. And where you want to go depends on a lot of things. In the context of this podcast, where you want to go is going to be around building the life of your dreams, the life that you desire for your family and for yourself. And for me, personally, that's a life of freedom, and not just freedom of finances, but freedom of time and freedom of the mind, freedom to do the things that I desire to do in my life when I desire to do them. And being home for my kids and being able to take them to school and pick them up is a big part of it. But really, truly, what I'm working towards is being unapologetic about the success that I desire in my business, and also teaching my children that it's okay to desire a life that's different than maybe is the norm. I'm the first entrepreneur in my family. The examples of mothering that I had growing up and in my family were certainly more stay-at-home moms, less entrepreneurial moms. I have never known growing up an entrepreneurial mother. And so becoming one myself has taken a fair amount of learning. It's taken a fair amount of grace. And so if you find yourself in a position in your life where you haven't had examples of ambitious entrepreneurial mothers, let this be the space for you. Let this be the space where you can be heard. I'm so excited to be talking about this. And I'm going to do another episode just around my story, and I'll dive a little bit deeper into, what it is that I do. But who am I? Who's Laura Sinclair? And if we haven't met before, we are now friends. If you are listening to this, we are friends. I have had a very interesting journey that I'm going to dive deep into episode 2, but really started my career in PR. I went to school. I did the things I was supposed to do. I went to school. I got good grades. I was athlete of the year in my graduating class in grade 12. I went to university. I studied communications, and then I got a job. I went to PR school. I worked at a PR agency, which if you've ever worked at a PR agency, it is a cutthroat environment. I think I came home crying every day as a kid because my boss was so mean to me, or at least I thought she was so mean to me. And I worked in that space for 10 years. I was in PR agencies. I went into sponsorship marketing. I worked at a sponsorship marketing agency doing digital sponsorship activation for some really big brands. I had some very cool jobs, and then ended up doing all the digital marketing in Canada for a luxury automotive brand. So really have had a lot of marketing has been my background. And I walked away from the corporate world in 2015 to work for a friend at the time who was building a nutrition coaching company. It was really my first introduction into what the online business world was. And we built this business from really zero to being a multi-7-figure business. And this is definitely a story for another episode, but my relationship with the owner of that company fell apart. I walked away from that. Actually had 2 miscarriages in that time from the amount of stress that relationship and that job brought me, and which has come full circle. And again, I will share this in another episode, but I left all of that. I walked away from that and I bought a gym. In 2016, I bought a brick and mortar CrossFit gym in Bradford, Ontario, Canada. The gym itself was probably about 6 months away from closing entirely. It was not well run. The business itself was going down the drain. And so I spent $32,000. I had $32,000 in cash from my work with this other company. And I just bought the gym in cash. I didn't take out a loan. Fortunately, the business didn't have any debt. I paid $32,000 and basically bought myself a job, and ran that gym for 5 years. And I will get into some of that experience. Had my daughter, Hannah, while running that gym. We owned the gym for about a year before I got pregnant with my daughter. And then in 2020, the world ended, sort of. We all know what happened in March of 2020 when we closed down for 2 weeks out of an abundance of caution. At the time, I was 8 weeks pregnant with my son, Miles, and nobody knew. And so I would run virtual fitness classes from my garage. And then I would turn off Zoom and I would throw up on the floor, because that was the level of commitment that I had to that business, is that I was going to sacrifice everything to make that business run. And that is a conversation for another day. But I think it's important for me to share with you who I am and how I got here. And so when my son was 1 month old, my husband and I made the decision to close the gym permanently. We knew that, where I live in Ontario, Canada, our gym was closed for 5 months. We lost about $100,000 in that process. We're starting to tap into our own money just to keep the gym open outside of the business money, which was not the vibe. So we closed, which was a hard decision. And then there I was at the end of 2020 into 2021 at home, still very much in a postpartum diaper, trying to figure out what it was that I was going to do with my life. And I knew that I had skills. I knew that I had the ability to help small businesses. I'd been a small business owner at that point for 5 or 6 years. I'd been in a startup environment. I'd been in a brick and mortar environment. And I knew that a lot of small business owners and business owners in general were great at what they do. And not so great at filling the funnel in their business, and not so great if you don't know what the word funnel means. That's okay. That's just a further proof of my point, of getting people in the door, getting their business seen. And that's really where I started my online business. And it's been, by the time this podcast launches, it'll be 2 years of running an online business. I've built more money in sales in those 2 years than I ever made at my gym, I ever made in any of my other roles. And all while raising 2 children. And so the reason that I want to have these conversations is that story, there are elements that are pretty yucky. But it's very easy for me to say, I did $300,000 in sales in 2 years of my business. It's so easy. But the truth is that it's not easy. And if you have taken on the challenge of being a mother and an entrepreneur, I commend you, because you are brave. And I am so proud and honored to be a shepherd of this conversation. And that is what This Mother Means Business is all about. I will share my story with you. I will share the things that I've learned along the way and the things that I continue to learn, because entrepreneurship is truly an ongoing personal development journey. And this podcast is going to be a place for us to have those discussions. I'm going to be coming to you in real time with what's happening in my life. And in our next episode, we're going to dive into really the nitty gritty of everything with my businesses and my story and how I've got to where I have. And to be honest, it's going to be pretty vulnerable and it's going to be pretty sticky, but I think that it's important because there are a few times in that story where I felt like I lost everything and that I sacrificed too much. My relationships, my health, my family. And so I want to be really honest with you about that. And so I'd love for you to tune in and join me for that episode next week. But just, I'm so grateful for you being here. And if you enjoyed this, if you want to be a part of this, like I said, we are already friends. But please make sure that you leave a review, make sure you subscribe so that you can be a part of this conversation. We've got some incredible women coming onto the show to share their stories with you, to inspire you, to give you the true tangible tips that you need to build the life that you want to build. Because I want you to know, it's important for me that you know that you can create any version of life that you want. And if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, that's awesome. You're probably not listening to this podcast. I commend women that do that. It is not for me. And so if you are a person, a woman, a mother who desires to chase their ambition, you want more than motherhood, and you want to find a space that celebrates that about you, you have found it. I'm so grateful for you, and I'll see you at the next episode.